Hello, I'm Brian Downs and this is ProSex Studio, the channel where I talk about the sexual subtext and messaging in popular films and television shows. I like underwater. Yes, it's a piece of genre, but I get exactly what was advertised. Kristen Stewart is at the deepest bottom of the bottommost ocean and some shit goes wrong. But what does this science fiction thriller have to say about sex? After a credits montage of media items about the Kepler station and some establishing interiors and exteriors, we begin with Nora Price, mechanical engineer, played by Stewart, alone in a restroom in the deep sea rig. She is wearing a clinging pair of sweatpants, a sports bra, and hipster glasses. Her low, throaty voice comes to us in voiceover. So what we've got is a lot of smooth skin on a lithe young woman who is whispering her innermost thoughts in our ears. This is sexy. It's also the classic horror movie setup, the half-undressed woman alone as the lights flicker. And what is it that she's murmuring to us? I think, or I dream, about the first thing that he ever said to me. He told me that he didn't believe in time, only moments. This sexy girl is confiding in us about her lover. What's the very next thing that happens? She cocks her head at some distant rumbling. She sees a few drops of water fall from the ceiling. A leak like that would usually require immediate attention. But then bulkheads start collapsing in a cacophony of catastrophe, and Nora has to run for her life. So that little leak is going to get deprioritized. I like underwater. Well done with a surprise. I was not expecting slam-bang disaster before the 8-minute mark, but along with a pressure breach, underwater is already soaking us with anti-sex memes. First, dangerous sex. Look at this beautiful woman, her bare shoulders, her flat stomach. Listen to her personal voice, low and murmuring, talking about her lover. Shriek in terror as the rig collapses. Danger is sex. Sex is presented as dangerous, frightening, anxiety-inducing, precursor to disaster. Here it is. In a matter of minutes, huge parts of the rig are destroyed and Nora is alone with one other survivor, a man named Rodrigo, played by Mamadou Athie. They must now try to escape what remains of the rig 7 miles deep in the Pacific. As they move through the rubble-choked corridors, they discover another crewman named Paul, played by T.J. Miller. Nora and Rodrigo pull a grateful Paul from the debris and he says, "You sweet, flat-chested elfin creature." This dialogue, and the fact that he is being played by T.J. Miller, marks Paul as the joker/pain-in-the-ass member of the group, because he made a reference to Nora being attractive. She is. And to her breasts. She has them. Your problem is sex. When a protagonist is interested in sex, talks about sex, pursues sex, it's always presented as their character flaw. What's annoying about TJ? He said flat-chested. Well, they aren't big. Your problem is sex. This is something he should overcome. Within a few minutes, the group of survivors has grown to include Emily Haversham, played by Jessica Henwick, Liam Smith, played by John Gallagher Jr., and Captain Lucian, played by Vincent Cassell, who I always enjoy seeing. There are no escape pods left in their area because Captain Lucian has already used them to send other survivors to the surface. So now our heroes have to travel through a couple of miles of smashed drilling facility and over the sea floor to get to the Robug drill, where there will be escape pods. It's at about this point that Nora puts on a heavy helmeted diving suit, so she's concealing that sports bra. The environment is dangerous. Rodrigo buys it in an accident very quickly, and then our heroes discover that they are being stalked by some kind of unknown carnivorous sea creatures, each about the size of a Clydesdale. So, plot twist. But about sex. We learn that Smith and Emily are a romantic couple when Paul gives Smith a still edible moon pie snack he found in the wreckage. Paul knows that Emily loves moon pie, so he tells Smith to give it to his girl. He also urges Smith not to screw that up. We met Smith and Emily half an hour ago. This is the first evidence we have seen that they are a romantic couple. The movie is trying to push sex and sexuality absolutely off the stage. Smith, for his part, does not actually admit to or acknowledge his relationship with Emily here. He does not say, "My girl will love this," or "I gave her moon pies for Valentine's Day and she was delighted," or any other thing that would be him admitting that he has an intimate relationship with Emily. Moments after making this G-rated reference to an alleged sexual relationship that he is not even in, Paul is bloodily killed in a sea monster attack. He is the first of our band of survivors to be killed by the creatures. Danger is sex. Paul mentions sex, however obliquely. Boom, dead. Then there is another monster attack that kills Captain Lucien and separates Nora from Emily and Smith. Eventually, Nora finds them again, trudging across the sea floor. Smith's diving suit has suffered a malfunction with its oxygen scrubber. He is alive, but unconscious, and Emily is dragging him toward the Roebuck drill, their last hope of escape. As Nora approaches Emily from behind, she can hear her talking over the radio to the unconscious Smith. Emily speaks of love. She talks about spending time with him on the rig in the backstory. She does not mention sex. She says things like, "I know that you listen to me and you make me laugh." She says, "I love you." But does she say, "You're a great kisser. I'm so glad that we are lovers. You're a non-stop sex machine"? No. She only mentions love, and that only when she thinks no one can hear her. And she makes no mention of sex at all. Zero. Nora tries to get Emily's attention by speaking on the radio, but Emily does not respond. Nora has to run up behind her and knock her down to get Emily to stop. Emily screams in fright. Let's review that. Emily is talking about romance, which probably implies sex. The next thing that happens is that she winds up screaming in hysterical fright, thinking that she's being eaten by a sea monster. Danger is sex, and also possibly the wanting disaster. The wanting disaster is a negative meme that says that when a character wants sex, pursues sex, has sex, that some kind of catastrophe will follow soon after. Now, Nora and Emily are dragging Smith toward the Roebuck together. Nora admits to Emily that she once had a fiancé. Her fiancé was Smith's best friend, and the three of them used to do recreational diving together. But then her fiancé was lost at sea in a diving accident. Remember at the very beginning of the film when Nora spoke in voiceover about him? This is him. And what do we learn about him now as the third act shifts up? That they were engaged and that he's dead. Nora uses the word fiancé, which implies an intimate relationship, but she never makes any more explicit reference than that. This is the wanting disaster in the past tense. Nora had what we assume was an intimate relationship, but we hear nothing about the joy or pleasure of it. Does she say, "He was a sexy devil and he loved the sea"? Nope. We only know her pain, because he's dead. And what is the very next thing that happens? Nora and Emily discover that the Roebuck is absolutely colonized by the sea monsters, and Nora gets swallowed by one. Luckily, she has a flare gun to free herself from inside the thing. Let's review. With 20 minutes left in the movie, Nora admits to probably having had a sexual past, just probably, and then a monster swallows her. She blasts her way out of it, and then she sees Cthulhu. I'm not kidding. She looks up to see a hideous, mountainous entity with tentacles growing out of its face, glaring down at her. It turns out there is more than one kind of sea monster and more than one size. That's what you get, you slut. Sort of admit to having sex and you get to meet H.P. Lovecraft's old roommates. Cthulhu tries to kill her, but she manages to get inside the Roebuck with Emily's help. She ditches her armored diving suit. So now, we're looking at a very attractive young woman in soaking wet bra and panties. Seawater, you know. But then we discover the last problem. There are only 2 functioning escape pods remaining. Nora's fiancé gets a name, Sam. But only when Nora is stuffing Emily in the last escape pod over Emily's objections. She has to punch Emily in the nose to get her to obey. Nora tells her she needs to be with Smith, who has already been sent toward the surface. Nora launches the escape pod, then overloads the Roebuck's reactor to kill off-brand Cthulhu, his minions, and herself in an explosion that ensures Emily and Smith's safe arrival on the surface. That's a glimmer of positivity down there on the bottom. Nora sacrifices herself to save the 2 lovers, allegedly lovers. But Underwater swamps that small effort with the fact that no one in this film can be proved to ever have had sex with anyone else, and that most dialogue that implies sex, even in the backstory, is swiftly followed by the death of the speaker. Nora admits to once having had a fiance, then she's attacked by a big monster, then a huge monster, then she takes her clothes off, dangerous sex, then she dies. I cannot say that Underwater is pro-sex. But it's a horror film, so what were you expecting? Why are we bombarded with this message over and over and over again? Why? Why do we eat it up? Dangerous sex. Sex is bad. It's for fools. It's for villains. It's the only thing we see. No wonder we're so bad at it ourselves. Please like, subscribe, share this around, and come back next week for more coverage of this kind on a different intellectual property. Thanks for your time.